Men and women of the 5th and 6th dynasty wanted to be connected to the burial site of the great ancestor Khufu as a way to push their souls into the sky and be reborn in the new world. For these people, the connection to the Great Pyramid would ensure them a prosperous eternity.
Let's go see the tomb of Idu. From the time of Pharaoh Pepe, these beautiful statues of the man waiting for his spirit coming out before the Hetep, the offering table. We just see him from here. It's absolutely incredible. He's coming up out of his burial chamber, just waiting for his family to bring the offerings. The tomb, of course, is below. This is just the chapel. So beautifully decorated, so fine and precise, like so much of the Old Kingdom art.
Idu was a judge, or as the ancient Egyptians called it, determiner of disputes. He also held the very important role of overseer of the priests of Khufu's spirit at the Great Pyramid. He was given this role by Pharaoh Pepe I of the 6th dynasty. The entrance of his tomb contains a curse, stating,
"Any man who enters my tomb with impure intentions shall be painfully punished."
A lighter side to Idu is that he had his wife, daughter, and his son and successor represented in the tomb with him. Offerings were left here for Idu, and right next door, offerings were left for his son, Kahar. Kahar had his tomb constructed next door to his father. He became the overseer of the priests of Khufu, Khafra and Menkora, and Merenra. Kahar was first a scribe, who became the overseer of the village, and eventually a priest of justice. He has lifelike statues at the end of the tomb that show himself at stages of his life, as well as his wife and son. Left of this room is where Kahar was laid to rest behind a sealed wall. The remains of the houses could tell us that people living there used to have a diet of beef, fish, and beer. The village appears to be divided into two halves. One for the overseers and their families, and the other with dormitory-like sleeping quarters for the workers of the pyramids. On the slope of the hill was the first cemetery, with more simple style tombs, and higher on the hill were more elaborately decorated tombs for high officials, such as Pepe, who seems to have been in charge of the payment of food to the workers. For in his tomb, we see him overseeing the making of bread and beer. The tomb of Nefer Hoteep explains he had 2 wives who would go to the Khufu pyramid each day to make sure that the workers received enough water on the job. Nefer Hoteep's tomb also contains a warning to all.
Anyone who harms my tomb will be consumed by the Nile crocodile, the hippo, and the lion.
The mummies of these people who lived and worked here reveal to us that they were well cared for. Many people showing signs of successful medical procedures, from limbs that had been placed in splints to a head operation. These men could clearly not have been slaves, as the men and their families were well cared for. The most magnificent tomb made for his second wife, and I'm going to take you inside.
The tomb for Meris Ankh is closed, so just waiting for them to go and get the guy with the key so I can go inside.
Meris Ankh was the second wife of Pharaoh Khafra. Her majestic tomb is one of the best for a queen in all of Egypt. Her chapel has a wall with statues of 10 women to accompany the queen, presumably her ladies-in-waiting, or her children, family members, and king's wives. The absolute highlight of the tomb is a wall featuring Meris Ankh in the middle, with all 6 of her children around her. Her eldest son, Nebemakht, who became Khafra's vizier. Her youngest daughter and son are shown at her feet, one holding the royal hoopoe bird. Meris Ankh is shown wearing a white and yellow dress with a cat's face on her hip, and a short cropped hairstyle. She holds the queenly implements. Before her are the titles She Who Sees the God Horus and Set. Yet another strong woman is shown before Meris Ankh, an elegant and regal woman, another queen whose appearance fascinates the imagination. Many Egyptologists suggest that this is Heteperes II, the mother of Meris Ankh. However, Heteperes II is shown in the tomb already on the opposite wall. The mother and daughter are shown sailing on a boat together, Meris Ankh behind her mother. And she has long black hair, unlike the woman with the short blonde hair. Heteperes II is always shown with long hair, even on a statue of her and Meris Ankh. In my opinion, this blonde-haired lady named Heteperes is none other than the mother of Khufu, Heteperes I, leading Meris Ankh, her great-granddaughter, into the next life. We have Heteperes here shown with the blonde hair. Oh, it's died. Shown with the blonde hair over here, and these strange pointed shoulder pads almost something like out of the 80s. Opposite this is the father of Meris Ankh and the son of Khufu that died too soon and didn't fulfill his destiny to become the next pharaoh, Kawab. He is seen holding a staff, while symbolically leading in a parade of offerings into the tomb of his daughter, capturing birds of the marshes, where he recounts.
Meris Ankh pulls papyrus for Hathor in the marshland with her mother. They see every good thing which is in the marsh.
A row of men and women bearing offering baskets for her from Khafra, Jedefra, and her grandfather Khufu. A fleet of boats are seen transporting the queen. She is shown under a canopy and seated on a throne, and craftsmen are shown making spirit statues of Meris Ankh. On the queen's false door, she is seated on a lion throne. The door where her spirit could visit the tomb to receive these offerings. These offerings, led into the tomb by Kawab, were collated in spirit by her chief steward, Kemetnu, who is shown several times in her tomb. At the entrance, he is shown reading a papyrus before the queen, who is standing with the jackal god Anubis above. Reri, another steward, on the other side, bringing in a hyena to the queen. These canine creatures were connected to the leader of the dead into the next life. Through the arch, we enter her inner sanctum, where once a year the sun would light up a second false door, energizing her spirit. This room leads us down into the queen's once sealed burial chamber.
I'm inside the burial chamber, deep below the tomb of Meris Ankh, the princess. The lights have just gone out, which is a little concerning, but I wanted to show everybody what was found in this tomb. This is Meris Ankh's sarcophagus, her stone sarcophagus, which had been plundered in ancient times. This is the remains of Meris Ankh inside her sarcophagus, all pulled to pieces. This is quite sad to see, because the people came in here looking for gold and they ripped her body apart to find all the gold inside. And this is the skull of Meris Ankh, the skull that was found in this very room I'm in right now, in the dark, with no electricity. This is the princess. We're coming face to face with her in her final resting place. It's quite something to be face to face with Meris Ankh. And this is a list of all the things that were found in the tomb of Meris Ankh. And this tells us that all the gold was taken out, because all that was left over was her sarcophagus, a wooden false door, and some stone statues and stone vases. But this, in here, tells us more about the princess than any other thing inside this tomb. The bones of this princess, what was remaining, is what tells us more than any of the decorations on her tomb. You can hear the echo. I think I'm just going to have a moment to myself. Even though Meris Ankh's burial chamber is not decorated, it has these quartz crystals inside the stone, so that when they left the candle burning in the tomb, as they left, all of these would have been twinkling, these little shiny stones, like the night sky for Princess Meris Ankh.
Texts in her tomb read,
Great favorite of Pharaoh, priestess of Hathor, mistress of Dendera, the companion of Horus, beloved of him. May she proceed in peace upon the paths on which an honored one proceeds, having gone well with her in the sight of the great God. May offerings go forth to her at the first day of the festival. Meris Ankh, she who loves life, one who is noble in the sight of Anubis.
when her tomb was sealed, her soul would hopefully fly up to be greeted by a set of motherly figures, whom would protect and look over the Queen's final burial site. To record for eternity, the Queen had scribes carved into the walls. Scribes were heavily important in ancient Egypt. They would take dictation from the king or officials, send international correspondence, assist with diplomacy, study religious texts, and compel the words of the gods, something Meris Ankh wanted to ensure. The sad thing is, Meris Ankh died middle-aged, presumably from silent sinus syndrome, evident in her skull, causing mucus to build up and breathing difficulties. She died just after her husband Khafra, before her tomb was ready, yet the successor king had her tomb completed, and she was buried 275 days after her death.
Dogs were another story, though. At Saqqara, we can see why.
Into the tomb of Mehu. As I've said many times before, cats were not the majority of domestic animal. The majority that people had were dogs, and dogs were given names where cats were not.
As on this 12th dynasty coffin, the owner is seen with his dog, and his dog's pet name is written alongside. At Saqqara, there are many scenes that show everyday life with the Egyptian countryside. Amongst the reeds and birds lurks a cat waiting for its prey. The Egyptians were experts at observing everyday details that we take for granted today. A few hours north of Bubastis, in ancient Tanis, this site even more in ruin than Bubastis, it contains an obscure 21st dynasty pharaoh's tomb from 1047 BC. The tomb was shared with Pharaoh Sheshonq and belonged to Pharaoh Psusennes.
That's better. You get
Keep it right
the
there,
shadow. Yeah.
Okay. I'll fix it in post.
In the tomb, we can see Psusennes before the goddess, the cat goddess, Paket. In Aswan, at Kubait al-Hawa, are some tombs of these Nomarks. One Nomark, at the start of the 12th dynasty, showed his power. He created a deep tomb in the mountain, and by carving himself on the facade of his tomb, on the outside of his tomb, he is shown performing scenes usually reserved for a pharaoh, along with several harem women. He is accompanied by his son and his dogs. The name of Sarenput I is so clear here. We can see the goose or the duck, the mouth, the water, the box, and the loaf of bread. And this spells out Sa-R-N-P-U-T, Sarenput. This man's successor, his nephew of the same name. He had a deep and beautifully decorated tomb carved into the mountainside. He had himself shown in the second hallway of his tomb in the form of a mummy. This was connecting him to the god of the next life, Osiris. He also wears a pleated headcloth and a falcon-tipped necklace. Surely this shows that he was trying to be shown as equal to the actual pharaoh. In the side chamber, we can see the human remains that have been located in Sarenput's tomb. You can see the remains of the top of a skull. But these bones are far too many to be one person. This tomb and many of the tombs at Kubait al-Hawa were reused later on as mass burials, recycled as tombs for other people. So, apart from this one skull, there are lots and lots of other bones. All of these baskets are filled with bones. It's quite interesting because usually a tomb, you go in, you see it with all the lights on, you get a different feeling. When you see the actual human remains, it somehow humanizes the tomb. And it's quite a moving experience to be so close to people that once lived like you, like me, and here they are. Yeah, it's quite something.
This is the owner of the tomb, Sarenput. Here he is wearing a beautiful broad collar necklace. He's holding a staff and a scepter. Sarenput is a nomarch, so he ruled, but he wasn't royal. He is here welcoming his mummy coming into his tomb. And on here is his son. His name is Ankh-Nura. Him and his son are depicted here in his tomb. As we go further down, we will see other family members of this man. He was of such a high status, he could afford a magnificent tomb such as this.
Further down in his beautiful tomb, we can see him with his son and his wife receiving many offerings.
In this piece here would have stood a statue of the man, of the nomarch, in front offerings could be placed. His tomb, his actual burial, is further down. But here we can actually see the workmen actually at work. Here's the grid that they used to create the perfect harmony in ancient Egyptian art. You can see the entire piece here that they just forgot to paint with this blue-gray color. Here is how they would have made the tomb. You can see by Sarenput they started to paint over the grid, yet they stopped. Did he die before the tomb was finished? Or did he run out of money? Or did the workmen just decide to stop? We don't know. But one piece that I find the most intriguing in Sarenput's tomb is this one. The beautiful man sitting here with his little goatee beard, and above we can see the hieroglyph of an elephant, and with a little mound and this N. This spells out Elephantine, the island that he ruled on, which is just across from these tombs at Kubait al-Hawa. He ruled at Elephantine, and there it's written. You don't often see an elephant in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. And here we can see Khnum. Khnum was the god that Sarenput would have worshipped above all others at Elephantine. His name is written here in a cartouche as a royal. Now not Sarenput, he's now Nubkhaura, which means this golden spirit of the sun, Sarenput.
These Nomarks even established their own funerary cult and ensured that their family and priests would continue to leave them offerings. Sarenput was the Nomark of Elephantine, the island temple complex across from the tombs. One Nomark in particular, here named Hekaib, even had his own mortuary temple complex created, where he was to be worshipped after his death. Several men named Hekaib were worshipped here, even one from the reign of Sesostris III and Amunimhat III. During the co-regency of Sesostris and Amunimhat, the power of the Nomarks was slowly being extinguished, maybe due to the pharaoh seeing these people as too much of a threat to the actual rule of Egypt. It is at a site now called Beni Hassan that we rarely get a good idea of why, by the time of Sobek Neferu's rule, Egypt was heading for disaster. High up on the hill of Beni Hassan, we can understand the beginning of the end of the Middle Kingdom.
The tomb of the Nomark Ameni at the start of the 12th dynasty shows us there was much rivalry between the Egyptians and the people to the north known as the Hyksos. These people from the area of Canaan fought many times against Egypt and eventually set up a peaceful settlement in the delta named Avaris. This was probably allowed by a corrupt Nomark.
In another tomb, we can see this event taking place. In the tomb of the Nomark Khnum Hotep, we can come up close and personal with the Nomark and the Hyksos. These people are shown arriving from the land of Amu in Shu. The man on the right at the front is named as Abasha, and he is titled as the leader from foreign lands, also known as a Hyksos. On this wall coming down here, with Khnum Hotep holding the bow with his pet dog in front, being flanked by Egyptians on either side while arriving in Egypt. Are these people wearing foreign clothing? the patterns are not Egyptian. They don't look Egyptian from the hair and the beards. These people are arriving in Egypt before Khnum Hotep. You see the scribe at the front. He's presenting him with a piece of papyrus telling Khnum Hotep who these people are that are arriving. Khnum Hotep standing here with his short-legged dog and his staff before these foreigners. And the name of these foreigners is written right above this scene here with the mound and the little crook. And that spells out Hyksos, Hekanesu, Hyksos. These are the foreigners from the north arriving in Egypt who would eventually end up back at Avaris. These foreign people who settled in Avaris began to establish themselves more and more. So, by the time of Sobek Neferu's reign, they began to slowly infiltrate society. Many historians refer to the Middle Kingdom as Egypt's classical period, since we hear from many of the voices of the ancient people, or Nomark, Baket, shown in his cloak. This is a very interesting scene. I first didn't know what it was, but as you can see, it is the man, Baket. He's got his front leg here and his back leg here. His head is there, his arm is here, his hands are holding a staff, you can see there, and he's got like a cloak or something over him. And he's like crouching down, probably inspecting his land, because there's so much agriculture happening here, so maybe they wanted to depict something they saw this man actually doing one day. We are now 250 kilometers from Aswan, halfway on our journey.
Let's go see the temple at Amada.
Our first stop is not a temple, it is a tomb, an entire mountain that was moved 30 kilometers from Aniba near Qasr Ibrim.
In the tomb here of Penalt, it's quite small for a man of such stature, because Penalt was the viceroy of Kush. That meant he was an Egyptian man sent down into Nubia to control the taxes coming up from the kingdom of Kush. In his tomb, we can see his wife and the man Penalt giving a text to, giving a text to the god Thoth. Thoth writing down that they have not sinned. Quite ironic, considering Penalt sanctioned the robbing of the Valley of the Kings during the reign of Ramses VI. And here we see Penalt's wife and himself again before Horus. Horus presenting them to Osiris, shown in his red dress, and this time not with green skin, wearing a nemes and a crown, the white crown. Here we can see Isis and Nephthys behind, supporting Osiris in his decision to allow the viceroy into heaven. Down here we can see Penalt on his knees before the cow goddess Hathor, and Hathor is welcoming him into his tomb. This mound is his tomb, the mound that was moved in the 60s. It's amazing. Here's the tomb inside, and Hathor coming out with the lotus and papyrus, greeting the man. Down here is the most intact image of Penalt in the entire tomb. It is Penalt in the middle, being poured over, being cleansed by Thoth and Anubis. The water painted with this beautiful blue, because Penalt started to gain power. The priests started to gain power, and this is where Egypt began to decline. Over here is Penalt's wife shaking a sistrum, and Penalt giving an offering of lotus and papyrus flowers to Osiris. We see the solar barge, which would have taken Penalt on his journey to the afterlife. In the center is a triad statue that would have featured Penalt in the middle, maybe his wife on this side, and a daughter on that side. We're not sure, but Penalt was shown under the protection of the cow goddess Hathor coming out of the tomb, the same scene that we see on the walls. Down here is Penalt and his wife and his family bringing the offerings to Horus, giving them back to Penalt for him to enjoy in the afterlife. Down here is probably the most telling scene. It's Penalt shown with two priests adorning him in jewelry, the jewelry that he sanctioned to be stolen from the Valley of the Kings. It is absolutely incredible to see this. We see very few people depicted like this. Here, Penalt is raised. He's shown in a bigger figure than the priests. Thus, he is more important. Usually, a pharaoh was the only figure shown taller than the average person.
Now crumbled away, it is in the tomb here that we read that Ramses VI rewarded Penalt for his work done in Nubia. He was a high priest. His wife was a high priestess named Taka, and she used to sing and play the sistrum in the temple at Aniba. So this is yours. Okay, what's the name? Selket. Well, it's the goddess Selket, the scorpion goddess who protects you from bites. Here she is. Wow. On Luxor's west bank, a tomb of the nobleman named Rekmira shows a great relationship between Greeks and Egyptians. In this tomb, we can see the Minoan Greeks arriving in Egypt with many gifts for the pharaoh Thutmose III. The tomb of Rekmira shows us people from all over the world bringing offerings to Egypt. We can see men from Nubia bringing in a beautiful giraffe with a monkey holding the giraffe's neck. More Nubian men bringing in ostrich feathers and carrying ostrich eggs, ivory from elephants, wood, baboons, even a cheetah. It is so incredible to see this. All the offerings arriving from Nubia. At the top, we have the people from Crete, the Greeks bringing in jewelry, gold, and vessels, and probably containing wine or even beer, presenting it to Rekmira to count, to add into the tax breakdown for Pharaoh Thutmose III. Up in the hills in Luxor, beneath these now abandoned homes, are tombs for nobles from ancient Egypt. This tomb from around 3,400 years ago is for a man called Ammon Hot Poy. This Egyptian man was the Viceroy of Kush, a title that meant that he controlled the tax and trade coming in from Nubia into Egypt. We can see the Kushites, the Nubians from the south, coming into Egypt, bringing offerings and gold. Here is a Nubian princess with a parasol above her chariot, the chariot being pulled by these cows. We can see the Nubians arriving in Egypt. They are arriving with all of their offerings, arriving before Ammon Hot Poy, the man counting all the offerings, and this being presented by Ammon Hot Poy to Tutankhamun over here. This is a different side to Tutankhamun that we don't usually get to see. For millennia, Nubia bowed to Egypt. However, their time was about to arrive. Siwa is a small bustling village where the living are alongside the dead. This is quite literally a mountain of the dead, overlooked by the mountain of the living. People of this area were buried throughout this mountain for almost 1,000 years, from around 700 BC. Every inch of this mountain is covered in tombs. Explorers did come here in the 1800s, yet the majority of the tombs were only discovered in the 1940s. We do not know the owner of this tomb that was discovered in October 1940 by Ahmed Fakhri.
So this is the tomb of the crocodile, right?
Yes,
Okay.
because we have like a picture of crocodile here, so they named that the Crocodile Tomb.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
There he
crocodile.
is.
Yeah. That's why there's no any name for the owner of this tomb. That's
Yeah.
why they named the Crocodile Tomb.
It's a very strange little tomb.
Very strange.
Yeah.
And here, I think the tomb robbers, they found like a wall here.
Oh,
so
yes.
they damaged it to find the mummy.
Yeah, you can see where they knocked it down
Yeah.
to go through to the mummy.
And something very weird here as well. We see Tahut or Hermes or Jehuti in front of Osiris.
Also a different color
Yes.
for Thoth.
Yes.
Different color.
In a black.
Yeah. Yeah. But the decoration is beautiful, but the style is, it's not Greek, it's not Roman, it's not Egyptian. It's Siwan.
Siwan, yes.
Siwan style.
The desert art in Western desert in Egypt in the West is quite different than the art in the valley and the delta.
Yeah.
Even via New Kingdom also.
Completely. There are all the cartouches, Lami.
Yeah. Empty.
All the cartouches are empty. So that's quite interesting that they didn't fill in which pharaoh they lived under.
He was like one of the nobles who lived in this area.
Yeah. They had like nomarks, like in Aswan, control the area.
Like, what's the name of this guy we visited his tomb last time?
Sarimput.
Yeah, Sarimput,
Similar,
yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
So even 1,000 years later, they have the same idea.
Same idea, same concept, same everything.
Yeah.
So, ancient Egyptian civilization, the only one who extend for all of these years, 3,200 BC up to 330 BC.
Although this tomb is crudely decorated, it is beautiful, with images of the goddess Isis and Hathor lining the entrance. This tomb dates to around 30 BC from the late Ptolemaic period and the early Roman period. Lavish burials were only for those who could afford them, so this person was clearly of a high status.
I don't know, she's Isis. There is no hieroglyphs or nothing in text, nothing on her head. But I think it is still a religious scene and on her goddess, because we are in tombs, so it's very logical.
The reality of this mountain reveals itself to us outside.
I just walked past and I saw there's all these bones coming out, and this is a person's jaw.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, you can see the teeth, the actual jawbone. It's amazing. And there's just pieces of bone, like there's a hip
Yeah,
here.
and leg.
Yeah, look, there's a leg coming right out of the ground.
I think it was complete skeleton here damaged for unknown reason.
Yeah, completely. And because this would not be from
No,
that
impossible.
tomb.
No.
This is from other people just coming and burying their dead in the mountain with just covering
Yes.
with rocks.
To get the blessing or get the holy mountain,
be
to be in
connected.
holy mountain, to
Yeah.
be connected. Yeah.
So even if you are close to a tomb, that's good enough. So the symbols in the tomb will still help you even if you're buried close to it.
Yes, and it's happened like in late period when they have nothing to do, they not have this ability to carve the tomb, but the belief and thought still alive. So as you mentioned, I like this idea to keep the connection.
The ancient people living in Siwa had their own set of rules. They were so far away from the ruling pharaoh that it gave them a sort of liberty to do what they liked. Yet secretly encoded in this tomb are hints to how this man saw himself as equal to the pharaoh. This is the oldest known tomb in Siwa from the 26th dynasty around 700 BC. It belonged to a man named Pathor. He was a high priest and a prophet of Osiris, the god of the next life, who was worshipped here long before Amun. He is accompanied by the goddess of love, Hathor.
And she's actually got the head of a cow,
Cow.
which is a unique image to see her.
In a tomb.
Female body, cow face.
Cow head, yeah. Or usually always using a human figure. In majority of tombs, not all. And also,
Yes.
you see this?
You can see he's a farmer, yeah, there he is. And he's holding the cows. We see this scene repeated many times.
Where?
Like Medinet Habu, Luxor Temple, we see Ammon Hot Poy III leading the bulls. But this man is not a pharaoh, he's not celebrating a Opet festival. No.
It's Ayaro.
Yeah.
I think it represents Ayaro. He became back to be a good farmer in Ayaro.
Exactly.
And do you know why they hold the cows like that in the farm?
In the farm?
Yeah?
Make sure they don't run.
No.
They
throw the seeds on the ground, so I get the cows, when the cow they put the seeds deeper.
That's very clever, so they don't have to use the machine like we use. Yeah. We can see Pathor.
Yeah.
Pathor. Here he is. You can see he's holding up a scepter, and he's offering these boxes up to the gods. So we see this scene even at Abu Simbel, where we see Ramses II with the scepter holding it up with these boxes, offering them to Amun.
Yes, and all are repeated, and also we can read
an offering to Osiris of life.
Yeah. So we call that funeral phrases.
Yes.
Must be inside the tomb.
Yes.
And the majority of it start with Hetep Dinesu.
But it's interesting that we're seeing these kinds of scenes in a tomb for a noble person, because these types of images, this is a royal imagery, so the Siwans are adopting.
They're adopting, and also in late period of Egyptian history, they break the law of everything. You know?
Yes.
And also the ruler here, or nobles here, they feel kind of liberty because they are far from the pharaoh.
Very far.
So they consider them like little pharaohs in a desert.
It took us 10 hours to get here.
Yeah,
Imagine
10
on a
hours.
chariot.
10 hours and 140 kilometers speed.
Yeah.
The eeriest part is that the prophet of Osiris is still laid to rest in his tomb. He was mummified with his arms crossed in the Osiris pose, usually reserved for the pharaoh. Pathor and his family were buried in this lavish tomb. To the side are 3 burial chambers, each reserved for a member of his family. It is uncertain whether people would come into this tomb to leave offerings, but this offering table was found inside. The Mountain of the Dead contains hundreds, if not thousands, of burials. Only 4 are decorated.
important than the other.
Yes.
It's longer.
Longer and also accurate, more accurate.
Yeah.
In the holes and walls, and also the passage, and the kind of
The decoration is incredible. I mean, the cobras are, these are just stunning.
just these cobras, but it's like a little touch, but give the tomb like a test. You can enjoy it, even it's not have that much of decoration, but the
Yes.
cobra made it.
It's more than enough security.
Yes, more than enough security. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
21 cobras. Yeah. And the glyphs are, it's so different, but it's really beautiful.
Read the Cortes.
So we have Lord Horus, son of Osiris.
Yes, Horus Sa-Uzir.
Horus Sa-Uzir. Yeah. That's incredible.
And the other side also we have.
Oh, yes. Oh, we have the beautiful Isis Hathor.
She is the wife of Osiris, and this tomb owner gets her name from this goddess.
You can see here life from Osiris, Hathor, and then Messi Set. And that determinative is clearly the lady's name.
Why you read like that?
Oh, well, we know because the birds are looking that way, right?
Yeah, this is a stupid question from me to ask you same questions, but something very easy with you. I am stupid, sorry.
This tomb dates to around 300 BC, just as the Ptolemaic period started, around the time Alexander the Great was in Egypt. Underneath the cobras and the winged sun disk, Messi Set was laid to rest on this platform in her tomb. We know next to nothing about her, but her tomb tells us the ancient name of Siwa, Tha'at. Many groups of people inhabit Siwa, from native Egyptian to Libyan, Nubian, and Bedouin. The overseer of the mountain is from the Berber group of people, named Amazigh, with his distinct blue eyes. Protected by the goddess Mut above, this is one of the most beautiful tombs discovered in 1940 in Siwa.
This is the tomb of Siamun, and you can see he's quite a different looking man. He has this short haircut, a little bit wavy on the hair, and he has a full beard. And this is quite an interesting scene to see an ancient Egyptian depicted like this. But the people here in Siwa were an interesting mix, especially at this time, of Greek, Roman, and Egyptian. So it's really interesting, and I've been waiting for so long to come and see Siamun, and here he is.
His name means the man of Amun. He lived in Siwa around 300 BC, during the time when Alexander the Great was here. Siamun's father was a Greek merchant from Cyrene. His mother was an Egyptian. He clearly embraced his Greek and Egyptian heritage by depicting many of the gods of Egypt in his tomb while showing himself as a Greek man. Among the many gods shown in his tomb is this strange-looking male lion-headed god. This is Mahes, a minor god with a niche following. The sister of Isis, Nephthys, protecting Horus. Anubis, the leader of the dead, is seen reviving the mummy of Siamun, who is laid out on a bed headed with male lions. Before them, Isis is kneeling while mourning for the dead. Isis was the wife of Osiris, the god of the next life. In tombs, Osiris is usually depicted as the pharaoh of that time, yet the cartouches in the tomb are empty. We do not know who he is.
This is a very, very unique tomb.
Yes.
I mean, we have Mahes over here depicted
extreme difference than the city one and the temples.
Yeah, it's very different symbolism in this tomb. Very different.
Because the art, as we mentioned before, get less during the Greek-Roman period and change it in culture and everything.
Adjusted, adapted.
Also, I want to speak about the roof, always inside the ceilings, inside temples.
I didn't even look up yet.
Well, it's full of vultures and falcons and stars.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the ceiling itself represents the sky.
Yeah.
The sky has a blue color, so some tombs we have like Ramses I,
Yes.
blue color. The sky has stars, the sky has birds.
Yes. And the stars are the ancestors.
Yes.
So it's all symbols.
All symbolic, but I wanted to speak about vulture. The vulture,
Yes.
now, the vulture have no such respect like the ancient time.
Mm-hmm. They're like a dirty bird now.
Yes, they're nasty and take that, the animals not good.
Yeah.
But the ancient Egyptians, they have different vision to the vulture.
Okay.
Clean the environment.
Yes.
After the war, he eat the dead bodies.
Yeah.
So the bacteria not increase to hurt the people. So they consider the vulture a symbol to get us mood.
Yes.
So when we see that in roofs, temples or tombs, as one day if this place come dirty, it's come to clean it up, and this place are clean, their place are purified.
Literally, yeah. It literally means that as you walk under here, you're being purified.
Yeah, excellent. You got the point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting, and they have the vulture and the falcon. I've never seen them do both. So this is so unique.
So unique. I love that. Thank you to recommend this tomb to come. Thank you. Really love it.
What I really love is the purification happening in this tomb. We have the tree goddess here. You can see the beautiful branches coming out with these little green leaves. The green is so bright. But she's pouring out this jug, and coming out of the jug is the water. But in the water, you can see the Ankh sign, literally showing that the water is giving life.
But as always, with life there must be death, and one creature embodies this perfectly.
Ammon, or Emmet in English, it's a creature in afterlife, like hyena's body, and some people say hippopotamus body, and crocodile head, like mythological creature. Try to eat you if you are guilty. We find this concept in all religion. So before you make the people fall in sin, you have to terrify them, to have to make them scared to not make sin or mistakes. So Ammon, I love it because Ammon can stop the guilty to stop to do sex. And also Siamun here, he tried to keep calm, to allow to him to cross and meet Osiris at the end of the sea.
Siamun held no religious or official titles. He was a wealthy landowner who produced wine and dates to be exported to the unknown world. His wife is shown in the tomb. She was an Egyptian woman. Siamun also had 2 children. He is shown in the tomb with both of his sons. Several mummies were found in this tomb, although all the personal belongings and treasures were raided in antiquity. This tomb has to be the most beautiful tomb in Egypt's western desert. The tombs in the Mountain of the Dead range from ancient Pharaonic to Greek Ptolemaic and even Roman. It turns out that our driver, Mahmoud, has a deep interest in Siwan history and tradition.
Lamy, tombs here in everywhere.
Yes, because it is the mountain of the dead. The Siwan people, they found this area or this mountain seemed like a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
So they believe in pyramid, same as Luxor. If you go to Luxor in King's Valley, you find the mountain seem like a pyramid and the tombs inside it. Yeah. Same idea. They never ever let what they believe until the last day of their civilization. Look, in everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
You've been to Siwa before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
An amazing area.
Yeah.
A lot of information today.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm just happy that you wanted to come along and see the tombs with us.
Yeah. Get from you and Lami a lot of information today.
Yeah. I'm very happy because, yeah, I hope that you'll bring some more people out here soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will be.
Oh, it's amazing, Mahmoud.
Yeah, it's amazing view here.
It's so incredible to be at the top of the mountain because here you can really see ancient tombs with the modern houses.
Yeah.
It's something really, really strange to see.
Yeah, it's very strange to see because in Kings Valley we don't see anything there. It's isolated area.
Oh.
So the life and death,
All in one.
all in one.
Yeah.
And also the palm tree scenes, it gave like a touch of magic to the location.
Yeah.
You can imagine in ancient time you're buried in such a place and you look at the scene from the afterlife.
Can definitely feel the magic here.
Yes.
Tuya and Yuya had another son named I. Although many Egyptologists are still on the fence about this, there are slight traces of his name on Tuya's coffin. I was born in Akhmim and would go on to inherit all of Yuya's roles and titles, as well as extending the temple of the god Min at Akhmim. In the city of Meketaten, I's titles are visible in his tomb, where he is also named as the father of the god's body, which would link him to being the famous Nefer Hoteep's father. I's secluded tomb in Luxor, adjacent to the Valley of the Kings, offers almost no clues, as it was so badly damaged.
So if you have a look at these cartouches, you can literally see that they've been chiseled out, and I's name has been removed after his death, and it's probably because this tomb was not made for I.
It would be I that would be the vizier and succeed the great-grandson of Tuya and Yuya, Pharaoh Tutankhamun. In 1375 BC, life was great for the royal family, and most of Egypt, in fact. Ammon Hotep and T had been running the country with diplomacy rather than war. They had made alliances with much of their neighboring countries, and the tributes to them were overflowing with gold and treasures. Egypt was at peace with the world, and its inhabitants were thriving. Yet it would be this year that Tuya would die. And only 1 year later, in 1374 BC, Yuya also died. We get the idea that the two were very much in love in life, and maybe he could not go on living without his lovely Tuya by his side, a feeling many know too well even today. Ammon Hotep and T offered them a tomb in the Valley of the Kings, a bold move, as prior only pharaohs and certain royals were buried there. Unlike other nobles who had extravagantly decorated tombs, with some of the finest details of Egyptian afterlife on display, these people weren't even related to the royals, yet Tuya and Yuya did not have a single decoration in their tomb, even stranger for the Valley of the Kings. The tomb is actually roughly cut inside,
and it is probable that the tomb was started shortly after Tuya's death to place her mummy inside before the 70 days ancient custom for mummification had passed. And thus, when Yuya died a year later, there would be almost no time at all to complete their tomb. However, being buried in the valley was already an honor. Their tomb was filled with some of the most beautiful artifacts ever found. But why, unlike other tombs in the valley, was their tomb not robbed and emptied out? You see, contrary to common belief, the tomb of their great-grandson Tutankhamun had actually been broken into in antiquity. Hundreds of years after Tutankhamun was laid to rest, Egypt fell into a decline, and the desperate public began robbing tombs to steal the gold to sell. The tombs in the Valley of the Kings were under guard, and it would appear that the men that broke into Tut's tomb were caught in the act. Though they had enough time to rummage through the first chamber, yet they were caught before they could get away with the pharaoh's treasures. The same thing occurred to Tuya and Yuya's tomb. In 1905, on the 5th of February, their tomb was discovered by James Quibell and Theodore Davis. A steep descending passageway was found. The opening was too steep and narrow for a grown man to enter. They got a young Egyptian boy to jump down. He emerged moments later holding 3 beautiful treasures: a small piece of a chariot, a walking stick, and a stone scarab gilded with gold. This stone was the heart scarab of Yuya that once hung around his mummy's neck. This scarab was covered in prayers intended to help him reach the afterlife, to be used in the weighing of the heart ceremony before the god of the afterlife, Osiris. But why were there such precious objects laying in the descending corridor? Tuya and Yuya's tomb showed evidence that it had been robbed indeed. However, it appears that, like their great-grandson, the intruders in the tomb were caught in the act of robbing. They were interrupted by the guards and obviously dropped some objects on the floor while fleeing away. Thankfully, the robbery was stopped, because today we can marvel at their splendid treasures. A few days later, on the 13th of February, after clearing the doorway, Theodore Davis entered the tomb of Tuya and Yuya. He described this event as such: "The chamber was as dark can be, and extremely hot. We held up our candles, but they gave so little light and so dazzled our eyes that we could see nothing except the glitter of gold." They had just witnessed one of the most spectacular discoveries in archaeological history, many years before Howard Carter saw Tutankhamun. Their fears of a break-in were confirmed inside. The tomb was in array. The coffins had been opened and objects were scattered all around. Even the mummies of Tuya and Yuya had been partially unwrapped. Clearly, the ancient robbers had been looking for the amulets and jewels before they were interrupted. And like their famous great-grandson, Tuya and Yuya also had exceptionally beautiful gold death masks. Another member of Akhenaten's court that would not relocate to Meketaten was his vizier, a man named Ramosa. His tomb is in Luxor and offers us the first insights into the afterlife beliefs of Akhenaten. Ramosa served as vizier in the last 10 years of Ammon Hotep III's reign, as well as in the early years of Akhenaten. However, because Akhenaten is shown with the Aten above, and his name here is still Ammon Hotep IV, we can understand that Ramosa did not live beyond year 5 of Akhenaten's reign. Although an intact mummy was not found in the tomb, only a mummified skull. Thus, we can't say how Ramosa died. It is suggested, however, that he may have met an untimely death at the hands of another courtier of Akhenaten, the brother of Queen T, named I. This is suggested since I became the next vizier, keeping the high positions within the royal family, and we know of I being devious and having had people taken out to further his status. Ramosa's tomb was started in the reign of Ammon Hotep III. His name appears several times in a lower register. Then everything starts to change. Rather than the traditional tombs which are filled with images of the gods like Hathor, Isis, Osiris, Anubis, etc., only some gods are mentioned in his tomb, like Hathor, Anubis, Atum, Rahurakti, and Amun. Yet, the mention of Amun has been obliterated. There's no mention of the traditional god of the afterlife, Osiris. Without Osiris, there is no entry into the afterlife according to the ancient Egyptian beliefs. The only other gods shown in the tomb apart from the Aten, Hathor, Isis, Nephthys, is the goddess Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice, symbolized as a woman with a feather. For the Egyptians, the goddess needed to be pleased to keep the balance between good and evil, chaos and order. It is interesting that even at Akhenaten's new city, Akhetaten, he is shown offering Ma'at to the Aten, so he possibly didn't just believe in one god, but a select few, with Aten at the pinnacle. Unlike traditional previous tombs, Ramosa's tomb is very much focused around his life, with his deeds and titles repeated over and over in a perfect form. The walls are flooded with scenes of himself, his wife, and loved ones. The tombs served as the House of Eternity, and so we can deduce from these scenes that under the Aten religion, the next life would be much like this, yet perfect.
Long ago, when I had long hair, many people used to say this little scene reminded them of me because of the hooked nose, the beard, and the eyes, the eyebrows. So, again, I just like coming here, just to look. Maybe this is my ancient self. You see, they are actually different foreigners arriving, and they are coming before Ramosa. Over here, they're giving offerings. Ramosa is taking these offerings and giving them to Akhenaten and Nefer Hoteep.
The only scene that is the closest to traditional is the funeral scene. Beautifully depicted, it shows the men bringing in all the grave goods that Ramosa wishes to take with him into the next life. We see many women and young girls mourning and singing hymns to Ramosa. There's also a man burning incense before a table of offerings, yet he has been deliberately removed. Could this have been the man who took Ramosa's position? Another scene is intriguing. A black figure is shown on a sledge crouching over. This is an ancient practice dating back to pre-dynastic Egypt, around 6,000 years ago. It is called the Tekenu. In this case, it is a priest wrapped in animal skins who will enact the energy of rebirth. It dates back to before mummification, when the practice was to only place a body in an animal skin in the ground. And Tekanu is not often shown. Therefore, we can understand that the religion of the early Aten period that Ramosa lived in was quite complex and evolving from previous times, even linking to what Sinuhe in the 12th dynasty wrote about the Aten and the afterlife. Under the funeral scene is Ramosa standing before 7 gates, the 7 gates to enter the afterlife. Before each gate, he offers something different, including a spherical object, most likely an effigy of the Aten itself, straying away from the traditional gates to enter the afterlife, where you were asked questions. In the early years of Akhenaten, you would have to leave an offering and enter. We can presume, like Sinuhe said, that Ramosa's spirit would have exited the tomb and joined with the Aten in the sky. In the actual burial chamber is a clay mound, which represents the mound of creation, the Ben, which Akhenaten had dedicated a temple to. This mound is connected to solar worship. From Ramosa's tomb, we start to understand more of how Akhenaten's vision of the afterlife was forming. But it would take some years for the influence of Akhenaten to wear off. Some of the tombs in Luxor, after the abandonment of Akhenaten, still have traces of the Amarna influence. I am on my way to see the last remnants of the Amarna influence on Luxor's west bank. This is the post-Aten tomb of Nefer Hoteep. All the scenes are shown on a yellow background, the same as that of Tutankhamun and I's tombs. This tomb was created at the end of Tut's reign and the start of I's rule. The tomb shows many scenes that are still in the undeniable Amarna art style, showing scenes from everyday life in perfect form. With one exception, the traditional gods are back.
And right at the end of the tomb is Nefer Hoteep himself, the man whose name means the beautiful happy one, and his wife, Merit Ra, the one that makes Ra happy. Here they are, just looking so regal. Although they're not royal, they were so important during the reigns of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, I, and Horemheb.
This tomb is the last glimpse of the Aten period we will see in Egypt.
As we can see is Nefer Hoteep and his wife Merit Ra, their daughters. This tomb has recently just been cleaned. It's taken about 6 years. When Jean-François Champollion first discovered this tomb, he came in here. The tomb had been used as a house very recently then, and the entire walls were covered in black soot. If we look around here, we can see all the black soot on the ceiling that is still yet to be cleaned. But the team of archaeologists and restorers that came in here recently, they cleaned every millimeter with a laser. So it must have been quite a long process, but absolutely worth it. The scene here is actually showing Nefer Hoteep at work. Here's Nefer Hoteep. He's being attended to by a priest. Nefer Hoteep was a scribe under the reign of Tutankhamun, Pharaoh I, and Horemheb. But this, to me, looks as if it was made during the time of Tutankhamun because of the iconography.
we can see standing outside Karnak Temple, here's the obelisks with the flags at the top of the pylons. Nefer Hotep being greeted by a high priest over here. This high priest shares very, very similar features to the facial cast that is in Berlin that we believe to be I, the possible grandfather of Tutankhamun's wife, Ankhesenamun, the man who succeeded Tut as pharaoh. But here he is working before he became pharaoh. That could be I with the owner of this tomb. So the scene that's happening here is the funeral with all of the offerings being brought to this very tomb, the official mourners all crying and screaming out for the death of Nefer Hotep. You can see them even bringing in all kinds of things like olive leaves, olive plants. We see his Shakti figurines. We see his canopic jars. It's just incredible. But what I love is this little detail. It is the death mask of Nefer Hotep and Meritran. There are the masks. And they are both wearing these mysterious cones, which until recently were believed to be fat. But that has been disproven. This beautiful scene shows Nefer Hotep and his wife Meritra. The conservators have had a little hard time to clean this one because it looks like she was glazed with something. We see this in the late 19th dynasty on a lot of coffins, that they have this sort of orangey yellow glaze. But what's happening here is Meritra, the singer of Hathor, the wife of Nefer Hotep, is shaking a sistrum to her husband, who's wearing a beautiful blue collar necklace, these beautiful lapis bracelets, his little beard, gray hair to show his age. We see the Amarna style still influenced with the large stomach, the rolls of fat, and he is pouring out this jar of wine. We can actually see red wine being poured over all the food offerings. Just look at the colors happening here. All the beautiful details, the flowers, the figs. We can see grapes over here, all the bread, geese, cows, beef. This is Nefer Hotep ensuring that for the rest of his afterlife, he will still receive offerings and still be played music by his wife for eternity.
Aten, still being a god, was not totally thrown away. His status was simply diminished to almost non-existent. The sun and the sun's rays would now make periodic appearances, but rather than being a god, Aten was sent back to being the word for disk or sphere of the sun, again as an element of the sun god Ra. Akhenaten was forgotten. His revolution had failed spectacularly. The religion of ancient Egypt would continue to flourish for another 1,700 years, a testament to the magnitude of ancient Egypt. And now we are extremely lucky to have been given access to the tomb of Akhenaten.
I'm so excited. Like, I'm sure. كامل لو عايز يفتح البقرة خليه يفتحها البقرة خليه يفتحها Okay. Let's go to Akhenaten.
Breaking from tradition, this was a family tomb. He intended for all of his immediate family to be laid to rest here. Yet is this tomb cursed, since on our arrival the generator keeps failing, and so we have to go into this deep, dark, damaged tomb with only torchlight. Maybe Akhenaten doesn't want us to learn of his secrets.
I can't believe that I'm here. Wow. Through the years, the tomb has been flooded and vandalized, leaving almost nothing behind of Akhenaten's vision of the afterlife. What we have left makes it exceptionally difficult to piece together his beliefs for after death. Here, the face has got the color.
His tomb features scenes from everyday life and includes his own writings about Aten, known as the Hymn to Aten. Like what the scribe Sinuhe in the 12th dynasty explained about Aten, Akhenaten too believed that when he died, his spirit would fly out of the tomb and into the sky, merging with the Aten to be reborn each day. Akhenaten, like the traditional Egyptian belief and most other religions, believed in a heavenly place to spend your afterlife in. For him, it was called the Mansion of the Aten, a celestial space which was much like Akhetaten, where the sun never sets. The traditional belief is that in the afterlife you would still have to tend to fields, cook, clean, and work. But if you could afford it, you would have servants in the next life. These servants came in the form of figurines called shabtis. Hundreds of these would be placed in the tomb. Each had a spell on it to reanimate the shabti to come forth and do the tasks you desire. It is unclear if Akhenaten held this belief too. He did, however, have shabtis created. These are now spread in museums throughout the world. But what were the functions of his shabtis? At the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna, Austria, we can find some of his shabtis, but these are quite damaged, and the inscriptions are illegible. Luckily, in New York, at the Metropolitan Museum, is a complete shabti. But there are no spells on the figurine, rather only the titles of the king and the name of the Aten. Did these only serve as a backup image for the king? We may never know. We know that his daughter, Meketaten, was buried in the tomb in her chamber.
This is the burial chamber of Meketaten.
Meketaten, yes.
Here's the princess. Here she is.
Here we've got the Aten.
And Nefertiti's cartouche. Look there.
Oh gosh, yes it is.
Yeah. Neferu, Aten, Iten. Wow. And obviously Akhenaten here.
It's very damaged, isn't it? This
Yeah.
Akhenaten. But you can still make that is Akhenaten. And look, his cartouche
It's
has
scooped
been
out.
removed, yeah.
Interesting, Nefertiti is still here and he's gone.
Yeah. Very interesting.
But just look at the flow on the dress.
And the hands still visible.
Nefertiti here.
That's definitely Nefertiti.
I mean, lights again.
Off.
Oh, forget it. Look Look at her, how beautiful she is with the dress. Who would this be? Ah, here's her name.
Yes. So we've got
Ankh,
Ankhesen,
Pa, Ankhesen, Pa,
Ankhesen,
Aten.
yeah.
Ankhesen, Pa, Aten. Ankhesen Amun.
Yes.
This is amazing. Did you ever think we would get in here?
I didn't. Still shaking.
Yeah. Wow. And then, is that Meketaten behind?
Can I see that?
You can see that. Yeah, Meketaten.
Meketaten.
Yeah. Born of the queen's body, king's body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are these official mourners? I think so.
Yes. And if you have a look here, you can see the morning scene here. She's literally lifting the sand. And if you have a look here, putting the sand over. This is a great depiction of the morning scene.
This is the death of Meketaten. Akhenaten here.
He's in mourning.
Nefertiti is holding her hand.
Oh, it's a very touching scene.
Very much mourning for the child.
Yeah.
There's his hand raised, you know, the mourning pose. It's just incredible to see that. It's damaged now, but when the tomb was first entered, they could see Meketaten underneath the canopy. Oh. Lights on, lights off. Originally, she was under that canopy here with the same scene of them mourning. Look how they're holding hands.
And is that baby Tut there?
Yes. This is baby Tut with Meketaten. Wow. Look at her. Look at baby Tut. Wow.
So
that is incredible.
That is baby Tut.
You can see the bed with the body of there. You can see that with Meketaten. The walls are so damaged.
It's such a shame.
Yeah. I mean, the carvings are not great, but the deliberate damage has made it even worse.
It has, yeah. I think, at the end they were so despised that everything was destroyed. But even though that we've got so little, we still feel emotional.
Yeah, we can see the emotions. I mean, this is a human emotion. They are crying for a daughter that has died. Look how she's got her hand out holding him.
Yeah, it's very touching.
But also what I can tell is here, Nefertiti is the stronger personality.
For sure.
For sure. If she's supporting the king and he's mourning so much.
Yeah.
Just to think, these people that we've been hearing about for so long, we see them here. They're real people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a totally different feeling being here compared to reading about
When
it.
you're reading about it, you don't understand the scope and the emotion that you feel when you're actually here. It's so different.
Yeah. Come to Egypt and experience it, it's better. Go to the places.
Exactly. Exactly. Because even when we were driving here, it's so vast.
It's miles from the Nile.
Yeah.
In here, this is where Nefertiti would have been buried. It was prepared for her burial. This shaft inside Akhenaten's tomb.
We aren't sure if she was buried there or not. even though a Shabti was found in the tomb with Nefertiti's name on it. Kia was buried here. Queen T, if she had died in Akhenaten's reign, would have been buried here. A golden burial shrine for T was found in Luxor, showing T being blessed by Aten. It's believed that this shrine and the mummy of T and other royals were moved from Amarna to Luxor later on.
So Curtis,
Yes.
do you want to explain the theories about the shaft?
So these shafts, you tell me which theory you think works best, because there's two that I know of. One is to check the quality of the stone, so how deep they can go down, which in this case, I don't know if that is the point, because the burial chamber is right here. It doesn't go any further down.
Yeah.
Second theory is that with these shafts, you find them in most royal tombs, and some believe it's to stop grave robbers.
Yeah.
So they would cover this entrance with like a mud brick and plaster. People would come down the stairs, they would arrive here and think that this is the end of the tomb and leave. So those are the two theories that we have.
I think theory 2 sounds very plausible,
Yeah.
especially when you look at how deep it is.
Yeah.
There's a third theory as well, though.
What's the third theory?
I think the third theory is about floodwater.
Floodwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I had that theory
That makes
as well.
sense. Like Seti's tomb has that has I think it's got two, and I know in one they did find flood water and debris.
Yeah. I don't know, which one do you think? It's tricky.
I think it had three multiple functions.
It does serve all those functions.
Yeah.
The largest chamber in the tomb was reserved for Akhenaten. Unfortunately, no mummy was found here, and his sarcophagus was smashed into hundreds of pieces. Today, the assembled granite sarcophagus is in the Cairo Museum. Even this reveals his afterlife secrets. Surrounding the coffin several times is the Aten and the sun rays coming down. There's a text that talks about the spirit flying to Aten. And on each corner is a female figure protecting the body of the king inside. Usually, these four women are Isis and other goddesses. Yet here it is all the same singular woman. A self-proclaimed goddess, Queen Nefertiti. Being the daughter of Aten, Akhenaten clearly believed that Nefertiti could aid his journey to merge with Aten.
It's almost completely sparse.
Oh.
What do we have? Oh, look who this is. If you put the light here, we can see the... Yeah. Here we have Nefertiti. Here she is.
Oh, and here's a mountain.
Ah, yes. Look, he's wearing the red crown. You see that? There's his neck, shoulders. Yeah. And they are... They're on the chariot.
There's the horse.
So there's, he's holding on to the...
Yeah. Oh, wow.
There's the horse's head, yeah. If you show me the light from here... Yes, look. You can really see the horse's head now.
Oh, the intricate detail.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this in all its glory?
Once it was full.
Wow. It's incredible.
And can we see the wheels on the chariot? So this, here's Nefertiti completely. Look there, look at her body.
There she is.
Because Akhenaten had such a different belief in the afterlife. So this is why we have these unusual scenes that would usually be never shown.
You would never see this.
Never see this in a tomb.
And look how huge the ocean is here. Look at this.
Oh my gosh.
It's huge.
It's huge, and you can still very clearly see the Cobra Uraeus under the Aten, holding up the sun.
It's fabulous.
It is both moving and eerie being in Akhenaten's tomb, knowing his mummified body was once here. The ultimate culmination of his belief system encased within these walls.
Can you imagine once Akhenaten would have been here?
Yeah, he
Isn't
was.
that amazing?
He would have been buried here before being moved.
Yeah.
He would have come in here to supervise the decoration in his tomb, plan everything.
Literally in the room.
When Akhenaten stood, Nefertiti stood. He didn't believe in having to appease Osiris, weighing the heart.
Exactly.
His beliefs were completely different. He believed he would be buried here, his spirit would exit his body, fly out of the tomb, meet with the sun, and go to heaven.
So simple.
So simple. I thought that these were scratches, and looking at these markings here on closer inspection, I can see 2 legs, an arm, behind, look there, there's another arm and legs.
Yes.
So, would he maybe have had his daughters underneath the sarcophagus, protecting the sarcophagus?
That would have been a touching scene, and of course, because his belief system was different, he would not have had the Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
He would have been completely different.
He had a different view.
He did, yeah.
Wow. It's a nice thought to think, if these are not just scratches, because I can see the head, I can see, it's just so faint.
The remains of a fragmented male body were discovered in the entrance of the tomb in 1891. However, the Egyptologist George Daresi wrote that the body was not collected, and since his time there, the body is now lost to time.
The human remains from tomb KV55 has puzzled Egyptologists for decades. Many point to Akhenaten, but the evidence, well, is anything but clear-cut. Part of the problem is the extremely poor preservation of the body, which was completely reduced to bones when it was discovered. It had been soaked by water, and part of the skull had been crushed by a fallen block. In the 1930s, Douglas Derry, who incidentally also carried out the autopsy of Tutankhamun, he set about resolving the mystery by putting the skeleton back together. Then further restoration was performed by Nasri Iskander with the aid of X-ray templates, and many bones were missing or damaged. A large portion of the right side of the skull was gone, the eye socket, cheekbone, nose, all missing. The left hip actually had a very strange oval shaped hole. The right hip was chipped, and both lower leg bones had been broken and then later repaired. The right kneecap completely gone. And yet, despite all this, what I find really fascinating is traces of mummification resin were discovered on the base of the skull, between the teeth, even inside the cranium. That resin tells us something. It tells us efforts were made to preserve him. In the 1960s, using both macroscopic inspection and X-rays, Harrison confirmed the skeleton was male, but a little bit younger than previously thought. So he thought it was around an individual around 20 years old, and he determined this by looking at the fusion of the bones. But not everyone agreed, and then Sane and Harris argued the individual was over 35 based on tooth wear and bone X-rays. Then in 2010, DNA tests and CT scans linked KV55 to Tutankhamun, enough to name him dad and nudge Akhenaten into the spotlight. CT team even estimated an age of 35 to 45. Case closed, right? Not quite. When you go back to observing the bones, the growth lines, estimated fusion of the bones, lack of joint degeneration, and lack of dental disease, it could tell a different story. So it's difficult to say that this isn't a young man in his 20s, just like Harrison said. So to this date, not everyone agrees on the age of this individual, or even if it is indeed Akhenaten or Smenkhara.
I just want to spend one more moment here because it's just such a surreal feeling to think that Akhenaten was here and I'm exactly where he was. He was walking here, he was lying here at one time. It's just such an emotional feeling.
At Saqqara, in the tomb of one of these courtiers that Tutankhamun was advised by, named Maya, the treasurer even states, "I was the pharaoh's mouthpiece in order to furnish the temples and to fashion the cult images of the gods. I made splendid the temples fashioning the images of the gods for whom I was responsible." From words like this of men like Maya, it is clear that Tutankhamun was merely a puppet. In 1997, the tomb of Nemtimes was discovered at Saqqara, which revealed much of the missing part of the discussions. In the tomb, Nemtimes is named as Ramses' royal envoy to all foreign lands, the chief steward of Memphis, overseer of the works in the temple of Ptah, fan-bearer on the right of the king, and most interestingly, the eyes of the king. Nemtimes was a very important individual to Ramses, so much so that the king afforded him a magnificent tomb at Saqqara. At the very central view of the tomb is a large statue of the goddess Hathor.
This beautiful Hathor cow is coming out of the mound, out of the tomb, with Ramses II. Right here, beautiful colors, beautiful yellow and blue nemes. She has the beautiful eye of Ra. It's absolutely stunning to see this. And we see this quite often during the 19th dynasty. And down here is the burial chamber. So she's protecting the burial chamber, but also welcoming the sarcophagus and the mummy into the tomb during the funeral.
Ramses I was buried in a rather modest tomb in the Valley of the Kings. Although small, the tomb exudes his devotion to the gods, as he is depicted in direct contact with several deities. Much like Ramses I, who performed the final rites at the burial of Horemheb, Seti was tasked with this act, as he was the son of the pharaoh, and thus he was now the next in line. Ramses II would also have been present at this funeral, and it no doubt would have been an eye-opener for the young prince who would have to perform the same ceremony once his father would go to meet with the god of the next life. His greatest personal building was his tomb in the Valley of the Kings. Seti's tomb at this time was the largest that had been created. It was so large that many of the rooms were not finished in time for his burial. Seti shows his devotion to the gods on every wall of his tomb, showing that Egypt was back to its former glory. After his mummification was complete, his body would have been processioned through the valley and ultimately down into his tomb. Leading this procession was his son, Ramses, who would soon become pharaoh. Ramses is not shown in Seti's tomb performing the opening of the mouth, as we saw in the tombs just a few years prior. However, the tomb's designer, named Baki, did ensure that Ramses' presence was in the tomb. On an ostraca from the tomb builder's village belonging to Baki, we can see his drafts. One side of the stone shows Pharaoh Seti, yet on the back of the ostraca is an image of a young prince, Ramses, the son of Seti. In Seti's tomb, there is a pillar showing a man dressed as a priest, draped in a leopard pelt. He has the side lock of youth. This image is Baki's way to include Ramses in the tomb. This man is Ramses. We have seen Ramses depicted like this throughout Seti's reign. The image of Ramses was among the gods welcoming the funeral parade with Seti's mummy into the tomb where Seti was laid to rest. The alabaster sarcophagus was closed. Ramses would have said an incantation while lighting candles and pouring water on the grain of seeds of Osiris. It would be the moment that Seti's tomb was sealed that Ramses would have become Pharaoh of Egypt. In the year 1213 BC, during Ramses' 67th reigning year, when he was around the age of 93, the exceptional long life of Pharaoh Ramses came to an end. The great pharaoh had lived his 3 gifted lifetimes. Some Egyptologists suggest that he may have eventually been 96 at the time of his death. He surely lived a long and prosperous life. The announcement of Ramses' death spread through the entire empire. An ostraca at Deir el-Medina tells us of the shock of the pharaoh's death in the village that would prepare his tomb. In this season of Akhet, on the 16th day, this day of coming by the chief of Magi, Horus Falcon, our Lord Ramses, king of Lower and Upper Egypt, Usur Maedra, Setapenra, will go up to the field of his tomb soon. We stood still and grieved until day 26. This letter tells us he ruled Egypt for 66 years, 2 months, and 9 days. Ramses' body would have been prepared for mummification in Pyramus, where he died. After the initial mummification was done, he would be sailed down the Nile toward Luxor. Along the way, the population came down to the river to see the pharaoh's final journey and to mourn for the only king many of them had known for generations. His death would have been a great shock to all. He did appear to be immortal. Ramses' mummified body arrived at the Ramesseum. In the temple, his son Merenptah and great royal wife, Bintanath, would take part in the final ceremonial rites of the king. Once Ramses' mummification process had been completed after the 70 days, his body was carried through the Ramesseum and processioned down past something quite unique to Ramses. The avenue of Anubis sphinxes, each protecting a small statue of the pharaoh. These same Anubis sphinxes that would have witnessed the burials of many of Ramses' past family. Now only one Anubis remains. I heard rumors that there is a second one that was relocated. I wanted to see just another Anubis that saw Ramses' funeral. Finally, I tracked it down to the French excavation house on the west bank of Luxor. After the procession passed the leader of the dead, the funeral procession would have walked toward the Valley of the Kings. The road would have been lined with many of the public coming to mourn their pharaoh. They would have cheered and cried and screamed, throwing sand over their heads as the sarcophagus passed. Before entering the valley, only a chosen few were allowed to continue on to the tomb. Arriving at the tomb, Merenptah, Ramses' son, and the now next pharaoh would perform the opening of the mouth ceremony with Bintanaf. Ramses would be taken into the depths of his tomb. Candles would be lit around the sarcophagus. The granite lid would be sealed. Water would be poured onto a bed of seeds and soil to symbolize the rebirth as the god Osiris. The final prayer was said, and Ramses' tomb would be sealed for eternity. The greatest pharaoh who had ever lived had gone to the next life. The death of Ramses is not the end of his story. Merenptah became the next pharaoh. However, the Ramesside dynasty would not survive long after the death of Ramses. The cause of creating as many heirs to the throne would ultimately be Ramses' downfall. Each family member believed that they had the right to rule Egypt. This led to decades of internal family fighting and eventually a civil war, ending with a great-granddaughter of Ramses being the final pharaoh of the 19th dynasty.
Why do you think after Merenptah's death there was so much fighting between the family of Ramses to see who would become the next successor?
Because there is no legal person after Merenptah. And this is why it's normal to see that the end of the new kingdom came with this Ramesside kings and ended by dynasty 20th, the new kingdom.
Yeah.
And therefore it came after that, the intermediate period.
Yeah.
Then I really think that Ramses II as a very powerful king. No one really after him came to be a strong king like Ramses. And this is why the deterioration of the new kingdom ended with dynasty 20th, with no king to bring stability to the country.
The economy would now decline under the new pharaohs of the 20th dynasty. Eventually, priests would rival the power of the king, and tombs began to be looted for their array of valuable treasures. In the 21st dynasty, when the priests ruled in Luxor and the pharaohs ruled in the Delta, the priests had long been looting the royal tombs, including that of Ramses the Great. They stripped his tomb of all gold and valuables. A descendant of Ramses XI had become pharaoh, but exiled to the Delta. His name was Psusennes. This Delta king is the one responsible for moving the major monuments from Pyramids to save them from the flood to the new city of Tanis. Psusennes wanted to show his royal connections and his connection to Ramses the Great. Eventually, Ramses' mummy was taken out of his tomb in the Valley of the Kings by the priests. He was taken to a storage tomb where his body was rewrapped and tended to. 3 days later, he was moved to the royal cache, the tomb of the pharaoh priest Pendegem, in the hills above the temple of Hatshepsut, where he would remain sealed for over 3,000 years. But how do we know all of this? Because it was written on Ramses' own coffin. In 1881, the royal cachet tomb was discovered, with many of the pharaohs inside. Among them was Ramses II. The news of the discovery of Ramses was like an explosion across the world. The day his body was removed from the cachet and loaded onto a boat destined for Cairo, thousands of people lined the Nile and cheered and mourned for the greatest pharaoh yet again. Coming face to face with Ramses' mummy, to me, was one of the most moving moments in my life, to see the actual face of the greatest pharaoh. Now that we know of Ramses' mummified body, what of his artifacts? Do we know what happened to them? We start investigating from the most tangible, the wooden coffin in which he was found. It is an elegant wooden coffin made of cedar with painted details on the eyes, crook and flail, Osiris beard, and cobra on the brow. But is this really his coffin? After all, he was moved from his tomb, and we expect a pharaoh to be buried in gold. If we look at the face, it does 100% match the younger statues of Ramses, even down to the slight smile of the mouth. Many have said it can't be his because it is too plain. On closer inspection, you can see that he once was covered in gold, as some flecks remain. His father too was buried in a cedar coffin that also had painted on details. His coffin also has flecks of gold, indicating that he, like Ramses, was once gilded. Wooden coffins were used for many pharaohs, including Ahmose, Ammon Hotep I, Thutmose IV, and Thutmose III. And these coffins show clear signs that the gold cladding was pulled from the wooden coffin in the priest's looting process. And remember, only one of the coffins of Tutankhamun was solid gold, so we should not expect every pharaoh to have a solid gold coffin.
Often pharaohs have their outer coffins and they are made out of wood and covered in gold. Now with Ramses II's, do we believe that this is his coffin?
I think it's his coffin.
I'm
Because,
the same.
yes, this is the coffin of Ramses II. But you have to understand, I'm always saying, look how Tutankhamun, who ruled Egypt for 10 years, and look how many objects were found in his tomb. 5,398 objects. The tomb of Ramses II, as I excavated, it is the largest and the longest tomb in the Valley of the Kings. Can you imagine how many artifacts could be there? And, of course, his throne, his coffin, could be more impressive than Tutankhamun. And this is why I really think that if the tomb of Ramses II was found completely intact, this could be the most impressive tomb in history. And this is why now I'm searching in the valley for the missing tombs of Ammon Hot Poy I, Thutmose II, Ramses VIII. Yeah. And also you have to understand that all the queens of Dynasty 18 were buried somewhere in the Valley of the Kings, yeah, and their tombs were not found. And this is why I'm hoping that one day in my excavation on the Valley of the Kings, I can discover an intact tomb to show how ancient Egypt was rich. And also at the same time, I always say that the belief of the afterlife for the ancient Egyptian built Egypt.
As for Ramses, the cedar wood would have a deeper meaning. At Karnak, Ramses had a battle of Seti depicted. The battle shows Seti going to war in Lebanon over trees. Wood was not as abundant in Egypt, and Lebanon was famous for its cedar trees. Seti conquered them, and we can see the pharaoh being given the rights to the cedar forests, which he had cut down and brought to Egypt. This was so important to Ramses that he had it shown in Egypt's most important temple. The wood meant a lot to Seti, and therefore wanting to respect his family and his father, the cedar wood would also have an importance to Ramses. The cedar had a connection to his family and the glory of his father. Therefore, family being important to Ramses meant having a cedar coffin was very symbolic. But what of the personal belongings and burial goods? Do we have any of those left? In his tomb, many Shabti figurines were found, some of limestone and others made of wood. However, in a small village near Florence in Italy, at a monastery, there is a small figurine of Ramses, rarely seen by the public.
We do have some things that were found in his tomb. We have a Shabti of Ramses II in the form of Osiris made out of wood, the same material that his sarcophagus was made out of. And on the Shabti, we can see his royal name, Wusir Maedra Setapenra. The justice of the sun god Ra is justified.
A few jars of alabaster and some of blue faience were left in the tomb. Found in another cache are objects that apparently belonged to Prince Ramses, however, were more likely used by Pharaoh Ramses himself. In the Firenze Archaeological Museum are these objects. It's incredible to be so close to something so personal to the pharaoh. Other such artifacts include this dagger with a wooden handle tipped with 2 falcons, similar to the one on his statue in Memphis. There were also woven reed sandals and an intact wig made from straight human hair and painstakingly plaited, and the lid of a wooden makeup box beautifully marked with the pharaoh's name in blue. We are now seeing that Ramses' objects were not all stolen. Some were moved and placed in other tombs, so surely there must be more out there. Up in the delta at the city of Bubastis, in an anonymous tomb, some jewelry belonging to Ramses was discovered, clearly relocated. One of these is on display in Paris at the Louvre Museum. To commemorate the Battle of Kadesh, Ramses wore this ring, featuring 2 golden horses before a chariot. From this beautiful ring, we know that Ramses had some of the finest jewelry of the ancient world. However, the Kadesh ring was not the only object found in Bubastis. Now housed at the Nemek Museum in Cairo are 2 exceptional bracelets of Ramses, and my personal favorite artifact, made from solid gold with a large lapis stone inlaid. The impressively detailed bracelets feature 2 ducks, which represent the god of the earth, Geb. Ramses' name is on the side, and we know that Ramses would have worn these in his life before they were entombed with him and then relocated later. Also found in Bubastis was a beautiful silver jug decorated with scenes of Ramses hunting, topped with a golden gazelle. In 2024, in Abydos, during the renovation of a Coptic church, astonishingly, a fragment from Ramses' granite sarcophagus was discovered. Why was it there? It must have been part of the loot that the priests spread out. The sarcophagus must have been moved to Abydos. However, the spreading of Ramses' tomb artifacts spread much further, and many were found with the Delta kings of the 21st dynasty. The tomb of Pharaoh Osirkon was a ramshackle mashup of recycled blocks of Ramses from the city of Pyramus.
The cartouche of Ramses II here, Wusir Maedra Setapenra. But on this side is Osirkon, who has taken the cartouche of Ramses and had it in Ammon, Amun. So you can see how the Libyan is trying to reaffirm that he's a royal, similar to Ramses II in his youth.
Another tomb at Tanis, this time of Sheshonq III, had an ill-fitting granite sarcophagus lid that appears to have been altered. The name of Ramses II was on it. Could this be Ramses' sarcophagus lid? It wouldn't be impossible.
This sarcophagus was taken from Thebes along with the sarcophagus of Merenptah and used here in Tanis for the burial of the Libyan pharaohs.
In 1940, the tomb of Pharaoh Psusennes was discovered. However, due to the outbreak of World War II, much of the tomb's contents were not fully investigated. We know that the granite sarcophagus of Ramses' successor, Merenptah, was taken out of his tomb and recycled by Psusennes in his tomb in Tanis. So Ramses' granite sarcophagus lid may also be in Tanis. It is clear that these Tanite kings truly wanted to show their connection to the previous pharaohs like Ramses and took many of their objects. A glaring object found in Psusennes' tomb was taken directly from Ramses' tomb, and many people overlook this. It is a bronze oven with the name of Ramses written on it, created in the year of his first jubilee. This oven has made me second-guess much of the objects in Psusennes' tomb. I believe that they may have been taken from Ramses, but for me, the piece that rarely hints to being recycled from Ramses is the golden death mask of Psusennes. Firstly, the style of the mask does not match other examples of death masks that we have from the 21st dynasty in Tanis. The other masks are all made from a very thick gold, with a face that was crafted separately and then affixed to a crafted headdress. Psusennes' mask is made from a single piece of very thin gold, which has been hammered into shape. This style matches closely to other masks that we have from Ramses' reign, such as Khaemwaset's mask. The shoulders have been rounded off. This is where the cartouche would be on the death mask, which has now been cut away. The back of the mask is even more obvious. The religious texts, which include the owner's name below the Nemes headcloth, has deliberately been cut off in a straight line. Comparing Psusennes' mask with statuary of Ramses, it matches precisely. In my very own opinion, the mask that we look at today as Psusennes was recycled from another pharaoh's burial, and that pharaoh is Ramses the Great. It is, however, mostly unfortunate that Ramses' tomb suffered from severe earthquakes and flooding over the millennia, leaving behind almost nothing. From what remains, the fineness of the carvings and attention to detail, we can imagine that Ramses' tomb would truly have been worthy of someone of his stature. The tomb once featured many religious imagery, as well as scenes of the pharaoh being greeted by many of the gods. In recent years, Dr. Zahi Hawass has been working on the restoration of the tomb. I'm meeting up with him in Italy to hear more about his findings.
Okay, Curtis. Good to see you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You were very much involved in the Ramses II exhibition that's traveling the world. What do you think this exhibition will show, and what did you learn from creating it?
No, I think this exhibit is very important because it tells the people about a great king, Ramses II, the king of the kings, who was really ruled for 66 years. And he was married to 8 wives, have 100 children. He ruled with his father. He built the tomb of his father. And also he was a warrior and a peacemaker. In the same time that this exhibit is telling the story of Ramses II, and also what's really amazing that the people who organize the exhibit are paying fund for the excavation and the conservation of the tomb that I did for the last few years.
Yeah.
And we found out it is the largest tomb in the Valley of the Kings. It's almost 700 feet long. We found many important scenes inside of Ramses II. And also what's good that he built this tomb in year 1 of his reign, because I found inside the tomb the first part of his cartouche, Usir Ma'at Ra, and the second part was written after the second year. Also, I'm looking now for the tunnel that may be connecting the tomb with the tomb of his sons, KV5.
Wow. Okay. When do you think that tomb will be restored to a state that we can
We need some more conservation, and I am hoping that in 2 or 3 years maximum the tomb will be open for the first time to the public, because it is the only tomb that the floor is down the valley, and when the flood came on the last century, damaged the tomb completely, and this is why I took more than 120,000 square feet of stone rubble and sand from inside this tomb.
In the year 700 BC, Amenirdis sadly died. Being the goddess Mut on earth, she was deified. Again, breaking from tradition, Amenirdis had commissioned a mortuary temple that also served as her tomb.
Upon her death, she would have been entombed at Ramses III's temple instead of in the royal cemetery in Nubia. And like the god's wife before her, she would have been able to choose her own successor.
Her temple was built in the grounds of the Temple of Ramses III at Medinet Habu. Her beautifully decorated temple is where her priests, priestesses, and followers could leave offerings for her spirit. This is the temple for Amenirdis. You can see her repeated several times. Her name in a cartouche repeated over and over, Amenirdis. The god's wife, shown here, Amenirdis, as Mut, repeated on either side. Many scenes in the temple show Amenirdis on her journey to meeting Osiris. The temple inscriptions call this place the House of Eternity of Amenirdis. She is shown in both her spirit and soul form in the temple. She also shows her adoptive mother and her adopted daughter, helping her prepare for the journey to the next life. Amenirdis' adoptive mother, Shepenupet. The high priestess pouring out water over her adopted daughter from Nubia, Amenirdis, cleansing her to become the god's wife, training her to be the ruler of Thebes in the 25th Nubian dynasty. Yet harking back to a tradition by the god's wife and Pharaoh Hatshepsut, but embracing elements of Sobek Neferu, Amenirdis makes a bold statement. She shows herself dressed in male clothing, yet retaining her female body. This was to demonstrate that she was as powerful as an Egyptian king, yet at the same time she was a noble Nubian woman. On this same scene, she is accompanied by the god of wisdom, Thoth, and the leader of the dead, Anubis. They are leading her to her divine afterlife. The center of the temple would have housed a statue of her spirit, or Ka as they called it. This is where each day the next god's wife would come to give her thanks. But this house of eternity contains no burial chamber. The outside of the temple may provide clues. She was in fact buried under her temple. Her mummified body was placed in a subterranean chamber along with many of her beautiful grave goods. Today, Amenirdis' body and artifacts are housed at the Vatican. Her elaborate burial tells us that she was buried in Egyptian tradition. Her mummy was placed inside a set of nested wooden coffins, each in the stylized form of Amenirdis. It is clear that the burial equipment was made by the Egyptian craftsmen, as they have not strayed from their style and not depicted Amenirdis as a Nubian woman. Her exquisite outermost coffin shows Amenirdis wearing the vulture crown of Mut and is covered in scenes showing the resurrection of the god's wife to the next world. Her tomb contains several wooden statues of the gods, one of Osiris, Ptah, two of the black jackal god Anubis, as well as the divine sisters Isis and Nephthys, who have their one hand raised and are mourning for the loss of Amenirdis. She, of course, had a box filled with figures of servants for the afterlife, and also her 4 alabaster canopic jars, which contained her mummified organs. Yet, the most precious item in the tomb was the body of Amenirdis herself.
I've been waiting so long to see her. This is Princess Amenirdis of the 25th dynasty of Nubia, and she was adopted and moved to Thebes and became a high priestess of Amun and Mut. So to see her, it's quite moving, actually.
Her body was covered in linen and then draped in a faience bead net dress, linking her to the goddess of love and beauty, Hathor. She has gold amulets placed on her body and a stone scarab to protect her heart. When Amenirdis' mummy was discovered, the wrappings were so beautifully done that they decided to only unwrap her face before covering her again. Amenirdis II died in 640 BC. Nitocris became the next god's wife, securing full native Egyptian control back in Egypt. Only 2 more women would become god's wives before the title was abolished. Shortly into the reign of Psamtik, the images of Nubian kings in Egypt would be erased, their temples torn down, and even the victory stela of Pianki over Egypt has the Nubian king's image removed. Egypt was claiming back its history, trying to forget about these few years of foreign occupation. Yet, we do have one last glimpse into the lives of Shepenupet II and Amenirdis II at the burial sites of Asasif in Thebes. A man who was closest to 3 gods' wives reveals more. His name was Pabasa. He was the chief steward of Shepenupet II, Amenirdis II, and Nitocris, and worked for them well into the reign of Psamtik.
Here is the cartouche of Psamtik.
His unique tomb rarely demonstrates the mix of Egyptian and Nubian culture, as well as the politics at the time.
His tomb also shows us much of the funeral happening, as well as the offerings brought to him.
The funeral is happening here. You can see the 3 priests with their arms raised. They've got Pabasa's boat here, taking his mummy across. You can see probably his daughter, a son, and another son. They're all coming around. You can see they're bringing wool, and all of these men represent different cities, different regions in Egypt. And here is the man himself, Pabasa, before what would be probably Pianki.
This first room is where the family would come to leave offerings to him. That is why it is so exquisitely decorated. And look at the beautiful little gazelle underneath. Pabasa is here, standing behind this beautiful woman. This Nubian woman living here in Thebes. We know who she is. She's Shepenupet. There is her name above. She's offering 2 jars to Osiris, and she's leading Pabasa towards Osiris, Shepenupet, the god's wife of Amun, the ruler of Thebes at this time. She's bringing this man into the afterlife before Osiris. She must have really liked him. Pillars in the first room show Pabasa's journey to the afterlife. They show his barbird, his spirit, meeting with his mummy. Pabasa also tells us about his life and shares some intimate scenes. Here's Pabasa himself, and his beautiful pet dog underneath. This tomb is unique. It is unlike many other tombs. The scenes show everyday life as well as funeral scenes, harking back to the Old Kingdom, showing the renaissance that is about to happen within Egypt. From this point on, Egypt set out to restore its former glory. This tomb dates back to 2284 BC and was built for an official named Senebi.
This is a false door, one of the biggest false doors I've ever seen. The function of a false door is so that offerings would be left for the dead and the spirit of the dead could come out and receive the offerings. So this is a portal to heaven. This is why I bring this little light with me.
Yes.
This is the burial chamber of the tomb owner, Senebi.
So he was hidden away from any grave robbers.
Yeah. This would have been filled in and then covered with hieroglyphs.
Yes.
So they couldn't find the body.
So it looked like just a normal wall.
Exactly.
Yet not all tombs are beautifully decorated like Senebi and his fathers. Other tombs, during the later period, during the economic downturn, are quite derelict in their decoration.
Are you ready for an adventure?
Always. But does it involve going down now?
Yes, let's go.
You bring me to the best places, Curtis.
I'll try. Take my hand.
And we will never see them again.
There's a lot of bats down here.
They are.
They're coming over there.
What's amazing is the sand, all the dust in the air. Yes. Oh, there's some bats. Oh!
Sorry, didn't mean to intrude. So this is what it must feel like for the mummies. We're seeing the outer bit, but this is where the mummies were resting.
This is your life. Yeah.
I prefer it out there.
Shall we go back?
Do you want to go?
Let's go together. Whoa.
Oh, it goes round there. Look, follow the bats. They're all going round there. If this collapses, my mother will kill you all over again.
It's okay, because we'll be dead.
It goes down. Curtis, it goes down.
Oh, wow.
Where are we?
We are going into the underworld.
It really feels like it. It's almost as though the bats are trying to get us to follow them. They keep coming up and going, look, this way, this way,
That's
this
the
way.
burial chamber down there.
That's the burial chamber. I can...
Oh, don't go too fast, Stephanie.
No, I won't. I'm just going to look at the burial chamber.
It's okay.
Stephanie, I can't believe how far we are from the others. We only meant to come a few feet, but it's too fascinating.
It's too fascinating. We're
following the bats.
We're in the underworld. Okay.
What can you see down there?
I can actually see a piece of...
A piece of bat?
A piece of his sarcophagus.
Really?
There's the sarcophagus.
Oh my goodness,
see it?
yes. Yeah. That cut stone.
We are in a 6th dynasty burial chamber.
This is amazing, Curtis. I was not expecting this.
I love it, but Stephanie, I think it's time to go back.
Let's go. Mummy's still waiting up there, looking pretty anxious.
Yeah.
I think I better rejoin the living.
Let's go. Mummy up there. Oh.
Oh, light. I love it.
Let's go. Okay. Are you okay?
I feel like Lara Croft.
Oh.
Just shame we're coming out with no treasure.
We made it. Oh.
That was amazing. Thank you.
What marvelous things did you see?
Amazing. We went all the way around and then down. We followed the bats and then went down into the actual tomb.
And after that thrilling visit, I think we'll call it a day.
The mummies discovered at Baharia span many centuries, but the most important, the golden mummies, have been DNA tested, and these, from the Greco-Roman period from the late time of Cleopatra, shows us that their DNA was ancient Egyptian, not Greek or Roman. The people living here in Baharia, buried in these pit tombs, were Egyptians. The second necropolis at Baharia, in the center of the town, has some of the oldest burials, going back to the 26th dynasty, around 550 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses. But this necropolis of over 50 tombs was not only for burial. A small village was discovered right next to the dead.
Good. Okay, let's go.
Is there light?
Oh my god. Oh wow. So different. I can't even stand up in here. It's so narrow.
This is the tomb of a wealthy merchant named Benuti, filled with one-of-a-kind scenes.
As you come into the tomb, you have Anubis on either side. This one's a little bit better decorated with some blue paint, quite unique. And he is protecting the rest of the scenes, leading the dead into the afterlife. And this is Anubis. He's absolutely beautiful in this tomb. But what we'll see in here is a freedom of art, because they had no constraints out here in Baharia, because they weren't so controlled. They could really have a way of doing things that pleased them.
What did you find?
Oh wow. Wow. Wow.
Dating to the 26th dynasty around 550 BC, Benuti's tomb contains very unique scenes of specific gods only to this region. Gods that he would have personally chosen to include in his tomb.
Sabat, can you give me a light?
That's what I'm doing.
Thank you. So, this is so interesting because this is a goddess just from Baharia. She's only worshipped here, and she has a little hedgehog on her head. So, it's really interesting that even here in the 25th dynasty, 26th dynasty actually, that they even included a local goddess amongst all of the other goddesses. We're not quite sure of her function,
But we can imagine that a hedgehog, some sort of protection, strength, and you need that out here in the middle of the desert.
She is known as the goddess Set. She is mentioned nowhere else in ancient Egypt, only here at this necropolis in Baharia. She is symbolized by the hedgehog, who would close itself in to protect from sandstorms. The goddess of moisture, Tefnut, is present, shown here as a woman and not as a lioness. The gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt are always distinguishable because of their symbolism. Beautifully painted in blue, this is the scepter of Was, the controlling scepter that was usually only shown with male gods holding it. Benuti has been credited with being a priest here in Baharia. As a priest, he would have been well educated and well informed on which symbols to include in his tomb, such as this solar symbol of the god Ra being carried across the sky during the night. For them, the sun god Ra did not just set at night, it would go into a journey fraught with challenges and demons that the sun had to overcome. Horus is seen at the front of the boat protecting the sun, while other goddesses like Isis and Nephthys are also helping the sun rise in the morning. This was a regenerative scene to have in the tomb, so the dead would be reborn in the next life. As well as a priest, Benuti was a prophet of Amun, yet he accumulated his wealth through being a wine merchant. Benuti came from a very wealthy family. His father was buried next door. His family's tombs are the only decorated ones in this necropolis.
That side, there's a burial chamber, possibly for family members, but the right-hand side, this is the main burial. If you see in here, this is the owner of the tomb. This is his sarcophagus. You can see it's very, not decorated, it's very rough, but they did what they could afford here.
We have to remember that tombs like this with grandeur were specifically only for people of privilege. Regular people could not afford to have a tomb of this stature. On the opposite side of the tomb are two burials, possibly for his wife and child. Benuti would have been living in Baharia from the time of Pharaoh Ramses, seeing much of the development of Baharia and its temples taking place. And clearly Benuti wanted to show his devotion to the gods in his tomb.
We have here the owner of the tomb, and interestingly, he's shown on a very small scale next to the gods over here. And that's really strange because usually in tombs, the owner of the tomb is shown on a larger scale. But here he's really showing his piety to the gods. Maybe because out here in the oasis, he really felt he needed the help from the gods. So there's always something interesting in everything you see on the wall. Everything is deliberate.
Benuti was one of the most successful wine merchants, and being so far out in the oasis, away from the pharaoh, could have given him a pharaoh complex, meaning he saw himself in authority, much like we see with many other people in the oases.